Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today is really a thank you for everybody who's been supporting the channel over the last 6 months, watching, commenting, subscribing, because over the weekend I hit 1,000 subscribers. So that's a really big achievement, and of course I'm really happy with that. Many people have supported and helped me along the way over the last 6 months. There are too many people to mention individually, but I think you know who you are, whether you know me personally or whether you've been commenting and liking the videos along the way. I really appreciate it. And as part of this video, rather than just come in here saying thank you, I would also like to just share some of the things that I've learned over the last 6 months as part of this process in creating the channel and filming these videos every week, and share with you some things that I've learned, which might be useful for you as well. The first thing is that finding the right topics and the format in which to present them is actually quite hard. Now, on my channel, and I'll try to put some of my analytics up on the screen now so you can have a look at and see what's actually going on, there have been some key videos that have really helped push the subscriber count. Now, depending on what you want to achieve with the channel, subscribers may or may not be that important, and it's debatable how important numbers actually are at the end of the day. But for me and for most creators, we want to get to that 1,000 mark, because this is the point at which we can monetize our channels. So not only have I reached 1,000 subscribers on the channel, but I also have more than 4,000 watch hours over the last 12 months, which is another metric that YouTube looks at before they will allow you to monetize the channel. So it's been a little bit of a struggle for me to work out what it is that I should produce every week, because I have so many ideas, so many things that I'd like to put out there, but I only have time usually to make 1 video a week. Sometimes if I have a bit of free time, maybe 2, but I have to really be careful about the topics that I'm picking. And as a new channel, I need to pick topics that people are searching for. And that can be a bit of a problem because, for instance, right now everybody is searching for Windows 11, but all the big channels have already covered it. And how do I get in the door there with that search term for Windows 11? So I have to think, do I want to create a video on Windows 11? Is anybody going to pick it up? Do I need to pick some kind of unique angle? And is that going to work? And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, but it can be really difficult to compete with the big channels on those popular search terms. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't necessarily try and do it. Now, I want to speak about one video in particular, and that's the video that I have on Microsoft Lists. Now, I created it when I guess Microsoft had just made it generally available. I'm not quite sure whether that's the case, but it'd only been around for some time, and I thought it's a little bit confusing. What is Microsoft Lists? Because you have Microsoft To Do, you have things like Microsoft Planner. Where does Microsoft Lists fit into all of this? So I made that video, and it hasn't had the most number of views from all of the videos that I have on the channel. I think the How to Get Microsoft Office for Free video that I made last year has twice as many views. But what's really interesting about my Microsoft List video is that it's really been one that has brought in a lot of subscribers, despite the fact that it doesn't have as many views as some of my other videos. So having lots of views on a video doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get lots of subscribers. One of the other interesting things looking at other people's channels is that there are some relatively small channels where they've had videos that have gone viral. Maybe they've got like more than 1 million views on a video, but maybe they only have 2,000-3,000 subscribers. So in my mind, how can it be that a video goes viral, 1 million views, but this channel only has, 2,000 subscribers? So it really seems to depend on not necessarily having a huge amount of views on a video, but something about that video that makes people want to subscribe. What I find really hard to understand about that particular video on Microsoft Lists is what is it about that video that makes people want to subscribe? Because I've tried to repeat the style, the format, but I've had much less success. Fewer views, less subscribers, so I'm really struggling, even with the help of the analytics, to really understand what it is about that video that makes people hit the subscribe button and think, yep, I would like to see more from that content creator. So if you have any ideas, then please let me know. I'd love to know what it is about that video. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that the Microsoft List video is the only video that brings me subscribers on this channel, because that's not true, but that just happens to be the one that brings me the most, which at least over the last few months has really helped bring in a lot of subscribers and push me up and over that 1,000 subscribers mark. Another thing I'd like to say is that whenever I do a tutorial, then the views tend to drop off as soon as the tutorial starts. So if I, for instance, give an overview of what I'm demonstrating or the particular technology, I tend to get a lot of views right up until I then start to say, and now I'm going to show you how it works, and I give a step-by-step tutorial. So that's also really interesting, because the Microsoft List video is just an overview of the technology. There's no demonstration involved at all. So I'm also thinking going forwards, how many demonstrations do I actually want to do? Are people really interested in learning how to do something step by step? Or should I just give overviews of technologies? Probably ultimately I'm going to give a balance and balance the content. So some things are just an overview, some things are more step-by-step tutorial, but I might tend to focus on just the overviews, because I'm not sure that people are really that interested in the actual how-to. Maybe people just want to go off and discover that for themselves. I'm not really sure. We'll see how that goes. The other thing that I've learned, and I'm actually pretty bad at doing this, is that your titles must very strictly correspond to the content that you're actually delivering in the video. I tend to create a video and then come up with a title and description. Sometimes that works, but that's not always the best way. What I'm doing now is I'm creating a title and a description, and I make sure that the content in that video very closely matches or exactly matches that title, so that people have an expectation about the video and they don't click off straight away, because actually I'm not talking about, I don't know, automating PowerShell, but I'm talking about how to manage Windows Server. And they're actually slightly different things, and people have slightly different expectations depending on the exact words that you choose to put in the title. The second thing is a technical point, and I really think that the technical aspects of a video, maybe with the exception of sound, are not really that important. Because again, if you look at the Microsoft Lists video, the production quality on that video is terrible. The lighting was terrible, the color correction on the footage is terrible, and it looks pretty bad quality. But people still watch it and they still subscribe. So clearly the average YouTube viewer cares a lot less about quality than I do. But because I'm a tech geek, for me the quality is really important, within reason. So I want to switch on my camera, I want to hit record, and I want it to look pretty good, because I know that I won't be satisfied at the end of the day, and that's also important. So I want to talk about lighting, because that's actually been the hardest thing for me to get right. Today I'm doing everything in natural light, and if you look back again to that, I'm going to keep referring to that Microsoft List video, you can see that we're actually, well, maybe you don't really see because it's maybe difficult to understand, I'm actually in the same room, but I have the desk in a completely different position. So I have a window here which is now lighting my face at a 90-degree angle. There is no other lighting whatsoever, so it's all done here in natural light. But the really important thing here is that if whatever behind you is really close to you and you sit facing a window, everything on your image is going to look very flat. So the way you want to do it is to make sure that if you're in a small room with, I had a bookshelf behind me, and if that bookshelf is very close to you, you need to be lit at a 90-degree angle, unless you have a lot of control over the light that's either coming in through the window or your artificial light, because what happens is whatever's lighting you up lights you up and your background equally, and you just blend into it and you get a really flat, dull image. And that really kind of frustrated me for some time. I couldn't quite work out what was going on. It seems really obvious now. So all I did was just turn the desk around, and now I film into the length of the room. So my background is a long way behind me. So now I'm using the window, and I've closed the curtains on the second window so that I'm lighter than the background. The depth also helps to separate me from the background. And if I'm using the artificial light, which I have, you can't see it off shot in front of me here, then I have no real control over it, it just spills everywhere, but my background is far enough away that it doesn't spill onto the background. So I always get that three-dimensional image that doesn't kind of look flat and boring and just really awful. So that was really hard for me to kind of get into my head about what am I doing wrong, because you go onto YouTube, everybody will advise about the kind of 3-point lighting system, where you have a key light here at 45 degrees, you have another light here maybe at filling it in at less intensity, and if you can, then a hair light to kind of help separate you from the background. Now, I didn't have the 3 points, I only had 2 points. I didn't have the hair light, but the point is that even if you have a hair light, if you've got a light in front of you that's basically lighting the background to almost the same intensity that it's lighting you, that hair light isn't going to separate you from the background. You really need to make sure that you are lit, you're separated from the background, and that that's all set up to make sure that you get a good image. I also had light reflecting off a picture on the wall because I couldn't control the light, and that gave me a kind of a green cast on everything, a weird color cast, and I tried to color correct it. And if you look back at the old videos on this channel, you see that they're either over warm, I have a red face, or they're cold and I have a grey face, I look like I'm ill. And you know, unless you really know what you're doing with color correction, it's really hard. You need to get everything as good as you can out of the camera with as little correction afterwards as possible. Because I have a really cheap low-end camera. It's a great camera actually for taking photos. It's not a great camera for taking videos, and that's something that I really regret when I bought this camera. I just assume that it takes good photos, it must take good video. No, if you're going to buy a camera for recording video, you really need to make sure it's up to scratch. Now, the problem with the low-end cameras and recording video is that because they record in relatively low bit depth, you can't really do a lot of color correction afterwards, otherwise the image starts to break up. You can just massage the image a little bit, but if you need to do some serious color correction on the image afterwards for whatever reason, whether it's to correct a problem or whether it's something stylistic, you won't really be able to do that very much with the cheaper cameras. So just bear that in mind as well. So whatever image you're getting out of the camera, just make sure that it's, you know, really as high quality as it can possibly be, especially with the lighting, because trying to correct it afterwards is a complete nightmare and will just completely spoil the quality of all of your videos. So the third point is actually also another technical point, and it's about sound. Sound is also really hard. Now, some people have commented that my sound is great, and it's not bad, I'll give you that, but it doesn't come without some pain. I'll explain why. This microphone is a dynamic microphone. I actually bought it because it was something required as a standard for the Pluralsight courses that I record. And it's plugged into my PC, which I use to record the sound through an audio interface via USB. And there are a couple of problems with that. First, the audio interface isn't very good, and there's a lot of background noise on that audio interface before I even plug the microphone into it, which I have to process afterwards to remove. The second point is that because this is a dynamic mics are great in that they tend to pick up your voice and not too much of the room acoustic. But the problem with them is that they can be quite prone to interference, and this mic always has a hum on it. Now, I don't know why, because when I was living in a different place and filming in a different location, I had no problem with it. But for whatever reason, in this environment, regardless of what I do, there is a hum. Now, there is one solution, and that is to put the microphone at a slight angle like this, which you will have seen actually in some of my other videos, and the hum just disappears. But, you know, the problem is then it picks up a kind of weird muffled sound. So the hum isn't very strong. You would have to turn up the volume quite high to hear that hum. And I use some noise reduction to try and reduce it. But it's quite annoying. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't advise buying a dynamic microphone or using a USB interface for audio if you can avoid it, because USB interfaces also can be quite problematic. You might be lucky with your PC, have very low noise. It depends on the USB interface. It depends on the USB port on your PC as well, because PCs are not designed for recording audio. They're very noisy environments. So it really depends, if you're using a notebook, then it's an even worse situation with USB audio. So, you might be lucky, you might be unlucky. It will kind of depend on the USB interface that you buy and your PC or notebook about the quality of the sound that you get. But, sound is really important. It's more important than the lighting and all the rest of it. But nevertheless, it can be quite hard to achieve good sound. And of course, the acoustic of the room also plays a role. So for instance, if I close the curtains, then I get a much less echoey sound in the room. But of course, if I close the curtains here, then I don't have any natural light. So I've just decided to go with the kind of bit of room echo today. If I'm using the artificial light, then of course I can close the curtains here. But that really reduces the amount of echo and gives a much more studio-like sound. But trying to do all of this and get that really kind of close, intimate sounding broadcast sound that you hear on the radio, for instance, is really, really hard. You need an acoustically treated room, and of course only the really top YouTubers are able to get that because they can afford all of that kind of acoustic treatment and stuff. So it doesn't matter how good your microphone is, if the room has poor acoustics, it's going to pick that up to a certain extent, and you can't really reduce it. You just have to kind of minimize it as much as you can. Okay, so the fourth point that I want to make, and part of the reason that I started this YouTube channel, is that, I'm a writer, I'm a content creator, and occasionally I record courses, as I said, for Pluralsight, which just involves audio, but I'm not somebody who sits on camera. I spent the last 10 years avoiding YouTube, where all my kind of peers are all there with their YouTube channels, putting themselves out there, and I just thought, I don't want to do it. It's just too much effort. It's exhausting to sit in front of a camera and try and put on my best performance. And I thought, that has got to stop, Russell. You've got to kind of put yourself out there, no matter how bad it is. And some of those early videos were quite bad, and just trying to kind of understand how to sit in front of a camera and present, because I'm used to giving kind of corporate style presentations where I give webinars or some kind of official training, and that's not what YouTube is really about. People want to see a person, somebody who's authentic, who's relaxed, who kind of entertains them. And I've tried various different things and different techniques, scripting videos, kind of doesn't really work for me. It's quite hard to read and deliver a script naturally in my mind. It's, it doesn't come across as very natural, and I prefer to just kind of get into the flow and give it like a more chit-chat feeling that I'm having with a friend maybe. And I think that's what the greatest creators do, and something that I would like to be able to do. I mean, I'm a long way from achieving that yet. There's some kind of magic that they're able to create. People like, I don't know, Nathaniel Drew, who, I will just watch his videos, even regardless of whether I'm interested in what he's talking about, because he's able to engage you, make that connection, and some kind of magic. Now, okay, this is a tech channel, and you could argue, well, what I'm delivering here is just really some kind of other value. And I get that. That's maybe not what this channel is about, but I'm greedy and I want everything. So I want something that's a bit more than just delivering technical stuff. I want to be able to create that connection, to learn how to create that connection with you, whoever's sitting behind the camera watching this right now. And I think that's what the greatest YouTubers are able to do. Nathaniel Drew has been a great inspiration, Ali Abdaal, and I think what they're able to do is speak very passionately and with excitement, because people say, when you're looking at the YouTube videos about, how to do this, how to do that, you have to deliver with energy. I was trying to speak very fast, and it's just not me. There are a lot of the American YouTubers are speaking at 100 miles an hour, especially when they're doing demonstrations and things. It's all so fast. I'm just like, well, hang on a second. I didn't have time to absorb anything. But the people who deliver the real magic, I think, are people like Nathaniel, who can speak, at a normal pace, but keep you engaged, keep you hooked, and you really feel that you know him afterwards, that you get that kind of relationship with the YouTuber, and people follow him partly because they want to follow his journey, but I think it's also partly about the way that he's able to present and make that connection with the viewer. And I'd like to bring that to this tech channel, to have some kind of connection. I don't know whether I will ever achieve it, but surely I can get better, and I hope that's what I'm going to be able to do over the coming months and years, to really look at the content that I'm delivering and what is it about this that makes people not want to watch it or want to watch it, and to really engage them somehow. So that's it. I know this has been a bit of a rambling video, me going on about, and it's partly kind of therapeutic and a reflection, if you like, about what has happened over the last 6 months with this channel, and maybe kind of where I'd like to see it go. I realise probably a lot of people are not really interested in that, and it's absolutely fine. I don't expect that this video is going to get, a huge amount of views, but, maybe it can help somebody. Maybe, I don't have all of the answers, but a lot of that kind of generic advice that you get out there is kind of useful, but you should take it with a pinch of salt. A lot of those things, kind of work sometimes, but not all the time, like studying your analytics and particular videos that are successful and trying to repeat it doesn't always work either. I can vouch for that. And I'd really appreciate, any feedback that you have, what you think about the videos in general, the direction the channel is going. If you're not subscribed, then of course please subscribe. I'd also really appreciate it. Give the video a like, and I will see you next time.